Rachel always said Ethan had a knack for noticing things other people didn't. "You'd make a terrible magician's assistant," she'd joke, "because you'd ruin the trick by pointing out the wires." It was true. Years of work as a freelance graphic designer had trained his eye to pick out imperfections. Missed kerning on a logo, mismatched colors in a design. Those details stuck out to him like blinking neon signs. Lately, however, Ethan had noticed something closer to home. Rachel's jokes about his eye for detail had stopped. Instead, she seemed jittery. Nervous laughter here, an unexplained text there. Then came the new password on her phone. She never used to lock it, she'd even hand it to him to pick songs during long drives. Now, that phone stayed glued to her, like a secret she couldn't risk sharing. It wasn't a big deal at first, but Ethan's curiosity had been piqued. Then, like breadcrumbs leading to a feast, the inconsistencies started to pile up. The first breadcrumb was the cologne. Ethan wasn't the cologne type, but he knew what his soap smelled like. Subtle. Clean. The scent that clung to Rachel's clothes one night when she came home late? That wasn't soap. It was musky, expensive, and distinctly not his. "Long day at work?" he asked casually, handing her a glass of wine. "Yeah," she sighed, not meeting his eyes. Ethan didn't press. He filed it away instead. Next came the new wardrobe. Rachel always looked good. She had a knack for finding chic outfits at thrift stores. But these new additions? They weren't thrifted. High-end heels. Designer dresses. He asked where she got them, and she brushed it off with a dismissive, "Oh, just a little splurge." By the time he stumbled on the email, he already had a hunch. The email was just the confirmation he needed, literally. It was a simple mistake on Rachel's part. She'd left the laptop they shared logged into her account. Ethan wasn't snooping, he just needed to upload a project. That's when the notification popped up. Reservation confirmed, private dinner for 2. The restaurant was one of those swanky rooftop places with a dress code and valet parking. Ethan had only heard of it in passing. It wasn't the kind of place they ever went, too pricey for a couple saving for a down payment. His stomach churned as he read the details. Dinner for 2. 8 p.m. guest of honor, Logan. Logan. The name didn't ring a bell at first, but it didn't take long for Ethan to put it together. Logan was the guy who had been liking every one of Rachel's Instagram posts lately. Ethan glanced at his watch. 5:15 p.m. dinner was in less than 3 hours. "Well," he muttered, closing the laptop, "guess I've got some digging to do." The iCloud account was the key. Rachel might have been careful with her phone, but she hadn't thought to disable backups. Within minutes, Ethan had access to her texts, photos, and location history. What he found confirmed his worst suspicions. Texts to Logan filled with heart emojis and inside jokes. Photos of Rachel in the designer outfits he now knew weren't for him. Location records showing frequent visits to Logan's building during work hours. By the time Rachel walked through the door at 7:30, Ethan had everything he needed. "Hey babe," she called, dropping her purse on the counter. She was dressed to kill, sleek black dress, heels, hair styled to perfection. "Sorry I'm late. Crazy day at work." Ethan glanced up from the couch, his expression unreadable. "You look great," he said evenly. "Hot date tonight?" Rachel froze, her smile faltering for a fraction of a second. "What? What are you talking about?" Ethan stood, his movements deliberate. "Oh, just wondering who Logan is and if he knows you have a boyfriend." Her face went pale. "Ethan, I can explain," she began, her voice trembling. He held up a hand to stop her. "No need," he said. "I've already seen everything. And I do mean everything." He gestured to the laptop on the coffee table. Rachel's eyes widened as she saw the slideshow playing on the screen. Screenshots of her texts, photos of her and Logan together, timestamps matching her work emergencies. Ethan smirked. "You were saying?" Rachel stared at the laptop, her mouth slightly open, as if words had simply fled. On the screen, damning evidence flicked by in crisp resolution. "Can't wait to see you tonight." A picture of Rachel in the black dress she now wore captioned, "Do I look good enough to be on Logan's arm?" GPS logs that showed Rachel's phone parked at Logan's condo during the very late-night work emergencies she had been claiming for last few weeks. Ethan settled back into the couch, arms crossed, his face a mask of calm amusement. Inside, though, he felt anything but calm. There was anger, sure, but also a strange detachment, a morbid curiosity about how she'd try to squirm her way out of this. "Ethan," Rachel started, but her voice cracked. She cleared her throat and tried again. "It's not what it looks like." Ethan couldn't help himself. He laughed. A sharp, bitter sound that filled the room. "Not what it looks like. Rachel, it's exactly what it looks like. Unless you're going to tell me Logan is a coworker and you're having private rooftop dinners to discuss synergy." Her face flushed with anger, but the guilt in her eyes gave her away. "I didn't mean for this to happen." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Oh, of course not. People never mean to schedule reservations, send flirty texts, and sneak around behind their partner's back. Those things just materialize out of thin air, right?" "Ethan, please." No, he interrupted, holding up a hand again. "I'm really curious. Walk me through it. At what point exactly did you decide I was worth betraying?" Rachel flinched as though he'd slapped her. Silence stretched between them. Rachel wrung her hands, avoiding his eyes. "I didn't want to hurt you," she whispered. Ethan leaned forward, his voice sharp. "You didn't want to hurt me? Rachel, you didn't just hurt me. You insulted me. You made a fool of me. That's worse." Her lips trembled, but Ethan felt no pity. "Did you think I wouldn't notice?" he asked, his voice cold. "The sudden late nights. The secrecy? You couldn't even bother to cover your tracks properly. You left an email open, Rachel. That's how much effort you put into hiding this." She looked at him then, her eyes brimming with tears. "I was going to end it," she said weakly. Ethan's laugh was humorless this time. "Yeah? Before or after dessert tonight?" Rachel was sitting on the couch, her head in her hands. "You know," Ethan began, his tone conversational, "I've been thinking about the last few weeks. About all the times you lied to my face, all the times I trusted you." Rachel lifted her head, her mascara streaked. "I didn't mean to lie." "Stop," Ethan said, cutting her off. "Just stop. You've done enough damage already. The least you can do now is listen." She fell silent, her expression wary. "I want you to know," he continued, "actions have consequences, Rachel. And you're about to experience them firsthand." Her eyes widened. "What does that mean?" Ethan smiled, a cold, calculated smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Oh, you'll see." With these words, he opened an email on laptop that he had sent to Logan's wife. Yes, Logan had a wife. Ethan had discovered that little tidbit while digging through Rachel's iCloud. He kept the message short and to the point, attaching a selection of screenshots for good measure. "Hi. I thought you'd want to know what your husband has been up to. Attached are some highlights. I'm sure you'll recognize him and the woman in the photos. My condolences." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "You can't be serious." "Oh, I'm totally serious," Ethan said. "Now she's due to come to his place for a date, your date, you get the idea. Therefore, I think he will be unavailable for some time, out of reach, so to speak." Ethan smiled wickedly. Rachel stood up, her voice shaking with anger. "You're a monster." Ethan shrugged. "Ridiculously. I thought you liked monsters. You slept with one for some time." She fell sobbing on the sofa, covering her head with her hands. But Ethan wasn't done. He handed her an elegant envelope and threw it on the table. "That's your bill," he said with a grim laugh. "What score?" "Lease agreement. From now on, the rent is on you. And I have already found a new apartment. Do you like luxury life? Well, now try to pay for it yourself." The lease was in both of their names, but Ethan had no intention of sticking around. He requested his name be removed and arranged to transfer the deposit to Rachel's account. If she wanted the luxury apartment, she could figure out how to pay for it herself. Blood drained from her face. Ethan calmly stood up, walked to the door and stood for a moment without turning around. "You know, Rachel," he said with a slight chuckle in his voice, "the cost of a ticket to this show is your conscience. But here's the irony, It turns out you've always had it for free." With these words he closed the door behind him, leaving her alone in a room filled with echoes of truth.